Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is DB333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron for Kaiserreich as New England. Now, last video, we took out the PSA. A little annoyed near the end there, but we're finally getting ready to wrap up, I think, this series, because I don't think there's much more from here really to do. Go and do the fate of political parties. For victory in the Civil War, must decide how to treat the opposing political parties. Many are quick to point fingers at either the Socialist Party of America or the American First Party as main instigators of conflict, allowing them to run a local level may be enough concession to hardliners. However, banning these parties may invoke protests against how a democratic nation can restrict the nation's political parties. Well, we'll figure this out soon enough, won't we? But yeah, At long last, America's been reunited. We stretch once again from sea to shining sea. The traitors of the country have been destroyed, and the stars and stripes now fly proudly from coast to coast, knowing that liberty is secured for all. Together now and forever, but we'll keep the map color, because that is a nice fucking map color. And there we go, boys. Beautiful. I don't care enough about research at this point. So yeah, we're really wrapped up. Oh yeah, something funny I wanted to point out. Our puppet is market liberals, so for the Entente, they're called the Independence Party. The fact that they're a puppet is very funny, and I hope the irony is not lost on the rest of you, because that makes me laugh when I see that. Looks like France is getting, they got the French Caribbean back, it looks like. I believe they've went ahead and gotten control over this little bit of land, too. St. Pierre, which is actually the only land they have I think they have more cores on that than they do original French territory, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Funny how that works. Well, the plight of American workers is an issue that continues to plague the nation, while the government greatly distressed with totalitarian and radical views of the revolutionaries who sought to destroy America. Unions and workers throughout our country still clamored for reform. However, thanks to the Labor Standards Act passed by Congress, some union leaders around the nation have applauded our efforts to salvage some of the reforms they fought for. While nothing radical like the reforms promised by leaders of CSA, it seems our new efforts have borne fruit, with the unions seeing our government in a new light. In time, the industrial efforts of the American people will finally return, the extreme views of Reed and his cohorts to put to rest at all. Hopefully this is enough. It's hard to say. We're working on it. And we are now out of manpower officially. And we'll go ahead and work on maintaining martial law. Despite the conclusion of the war, there are still lingering dissenting elements among the population in the rural areas of the South. Loyalists to the longest cause remain constantly harassing our forces, while in the Midwest, syndicalist rebels continue their acts of terror. Despite their failure of the revolution in these turbulent times, we will have to maintain martial law to ensure that our citizens are safe. Yeah, fair enough. And then if we might be around long enough to get elections, which would be neat to see. Russia is about to lose Arkhangelsk. I'm very curious to see how Transmore ends up doing, if they can even do anything. Oh, so we get a Option for new capital. Once great capital has been reduced to rubble during the Civil War, for the second time in its history, the city's once mighty avenues and monuments were nothing more than mere shells of their former selves. Intense street-to-street fighting has led to each building of the city turned into a fortress, a depressing fate for what was once the heart of American democracy. For order being restored across the nation, award recognition of the reunified U.S. The question of a nation's capital has arisen. Despite being utterly ruined, D.C. is a powerful candidate. The return of a president of the White House and Congresses held in the capital will legitimize the professional government of New England as heirs of American democracy. On the other hand, the city of Boston also poses a powerful argument. Birthplace of the American Revolution and temporary capital in the nation's darkest days, Boston has undoubtedly proven its worth as the nation's capital. Finally, there is a proposal that the nation's capital should move westward to the middle of the country. St. Louis has always been the bridgeway between the east and west and would fit a vast nation like America. Let's do Washington. That's only right. I want to say we moved it to St. Louis when we did the TNO, not the TNO, the AUS series. So it only makes sense to go back a bit further. Alright, let's see. The press and curious onlookers gathered today in Maryland to witness the trials of former members of CSA, Flynn, Thomas, Foster, and Browder. His names were read over and over in the courtrooms, with each verdict yielding either treason or guilty over and over. John Jack Silas Reed, the former and first and only president of CSA, was brought out as well. Those lawyers argued that he is currently unable to defend himself due to his ill health. Reed, they argued, was trying to protect the common working class of America. Indeed, this has been a mighty rallying cry for defenders of former CSA. The SPA was only fighting for the rights of the working class and hoping to alleviate years of economic depression. Yet what can explain the countless acts of senseless violence committed by the Red Guard that led to refugees abandoning homes and families for asylum in New England? Some are passionately pleading for amnesty or light terms for members of former CSA. Some believe these men and women were traitors in the nation's worst crisis. Final decision rests with a jury. Now, forgiveness is a virtue, and we got plenty of political power anyway. So I'm not too worried. Suppress resistance in Pittsburgh. Michigan too, why not? And North Carolina. Actually, I'll just click all of these. Shoot. Getting it all figured out. There we go. Beautiful. So we're now losing political power every day, which I'm fine with, honestly. Hey, Puerto Rico, how you doing, bud? Some more support. That's neat. Maintaining martial law. Let's fight the Klan. Despite the defeat of the AOS, many rebel partisan groups still exist in the southern states, refusing to accept our government's authority. Dissent groups like the KKK have been preying on African Americans and using terror tactics to spread their message of racial hatred. This cannot exist in our democratic society. If we are indeed to represent and protect the American people, we will crush them. Let's see. Trial of the AUS began interstate in Maryland. Many onlookers curious to see whether or not the South would be punished for a second time. Huey Long was not present, having fled the nation in the final days of the Civil War, and instead was scattered members of the AFP, including Charles Coughlin, Charles Lindbergh, and George Mosley. While their lawyers have argued passionately that these men fought to preserve true American democracy and defend it from failing to radicalism and socialism, the acts of Huey Long and his cohorts did nothing but drive our nation to further into dissolution. Their leader was nothing more than a demagogue, and many in the ranks espoused racist rhetoric, words that do not belong in our country. In addition, these men fought for an impure form of democracy, and there are plenty of eyewitness reports of Minutemen organizing lynching mobs. While some are pleading for amnesty on lighter terms for members of foreign AOS, some believe that these men and women were traitors of a nation's worst crisis. Final decision rests with the jury. Something something forgiveness, something something virtue. Trial of weapons companies. Let's not allow them to operate again. Get some new companies going. Yeah, see, those are all... We're not going to change them because it doesn't matter, but... It's neat. Neat idea. Also, did they add... I think they might have just added unique little pictures for all the cities. Ooh. Great Britain abandons Northern Ireland. You know what? That's nice. The two can finally live side by side. Yeah, allow them to operate. Why not? Okay. Let's see. Many bargained the Pacific States sought for true American democracy as the nation crumbled around them. Already lawyers of Merriam, Galati, and Johnson petitioned the jury to understand the leaders of PSA who surely hoped to keep American democracy alive. They not have more than defend the Constitution. Such arguments certainly have had of sway, but cannot be denied that New England fought against us in the Civil War and that New England blood was shed during the fight against them. And they don't need to be punished. It's a virtue, all that shit. This is a neat little, because I think they had the tree revamped, I want to say. Yeah, let them operate again, I don't mind. Is that fucking Mark? I have my Twitch open. That is Mark fucking Muir, Commander Shepard on my Twitch recommended. He's playing Dungeons and Dragons or some shit, which I don't think I care quite enough to want. I don't care enough about Mark Muir to watch that, but I thought that's kind of cool to see him. Good old Marcus. Anyhow, let's do trials with General Staff. War hero Mark Clark of General Staff has requested a meeting with John Winant. He wishes to formalize a hearing to deal with the enemy officers of Red factions. He claims that many of the officers were on the wrong side due to geographical allegiance. So just as Lee cannot fight against his home state of Virginia, neither too could many of his officers. Now that America is whole once more, some can be brought back into the Army and Navy. Why are fucking armor divisions being used? It's fucking stupid. Why? See, now I don't know how to do the fucking... Here's compliance. Why would you use heavy armor? Fucking militiamen, come on. Let's see if we can do local autonomy for these guys. In Maryland, the highly anticipated trial of Douglas MacArthur and his military junta finally began much to the curiosity of onlookers in the press. The prosecution went straight for facts. There was no doubt about it. When confronted with a national crisis, MacArthur had executed a coup that challenges the very nature of American democracy. While he and his cohorts claimed the mantle of the former USA, The prosecution argued that this is no more than a military junta that threw the ideas of the Constitution out the window. MacArthur himself was nowhere to be seen, having fled the U.S. in exile after the defeat of his federal army. His reps argued that the old and exhausted general wanted nothing more than to retire in peace. They claimed that the nation was heading towards a radical path and would throw the country into utter anarchy, and MacArthur simply attempted to restore order and preserve American democracy. Many call his actions tyrannical. There are certainly those who believe that MacArthur wanted nothing more than to see an end to radicalism in our country. The rest of his military clique's fate will decide on the charter. The final decision rests with each jury. Yeah, forgiveness, virtue. Just kind of want the compliance to go back up. There goes Cairo. I'm guessing with that, the rest of the Cairo Pact will go. I'm guessing as soon as they take Alexandria. Now, can we go ahead and just... restore order? Is that just our option to core? That is just our option to core. Okay. Trials of General Staff. I think I just kind of want to speed up through... Yeah, I'll just go ahead, because I want to speed through to check out the rest of the content anyway. So, let's see, Executive Order 9088, created by John Winnow, will form a creative committee to examine civil rights conditions in the U.S., report on their file, and submit recommendations for how the government can improve conditions in the U.S. We have fought and won for a unified America, but our nation's struggles are hardly over. Pressure from groups such as Representative Sleeping Car Porters, led by A. Philip Randolph, petitioned Congress to combat Jim Crow's racial prejudices actively. They pushed for official legislation to abolish poll taxes and the grandfather clause that hinders African Americans from joining. Through St. Louis War Memorial, countless droves of Americans have perished in the fires of Second American Civil Wars on all sides. Nowhere was more evident than the city of St. Louis, in the center of the country. The outbreak of a war saw fierce fighting in the city's streets as each faction tried to seize control of a region. Situated on the Mississippi's west bank, a monument shall be erected in remembrance of all of the fallen. Next, we can electrify the nation. The nation's electrical grids lie utterly dismantled and scarred after the inferno of a civil war. The passage of acts such as its Executive Order 7037 by the President, every home in the nation will soon have light and energy from San Francisco to New York City. Not only will we fix the power situations in the cities, but we will also expand the electrification of our country to the rural areas. Next, as the Senate are forced back, workers fought desperately amidst the large industrial steel belts for each and every factory. Many of the large plants now lie in ruins in the conflict. As one of the resource-rich and well-connected regions of the country, we should seek to rebuild what was once lost. To do so would likely endear us with the remnants of CSA. Next, while the CSA officially ceases to exist, Red Men still exists in parts of Rust Belt. It's not a Rust Belt this time, it's a Steel Belt, come on. All these partisans are not a significant threat to our government's legitimacy. Our citizens still feel safe as these rebels groups launch raids and bombings, crack down on them, to end these so-called revolutionaries from terrorizing people in our country. Next, as our nation recovers from the scars of conflict that tore our country apart, domestic dissidents and terrorists continue to challenge our government. With local law enforcement increasingly unable to deal with the unrest, we'll have to invoke the Insurrection Acts and the repeal of the Posse Comitatus Act to suppress the civil disorder that plagues our nation. Next, war broke out. Manufacturers across the country hurried to switch production to produce war material for the war effort. With the cessation of hostilities at home, the time has come to help factory owners transition back towards civilian production. Those factories are better suited to help rebuilding the country rather than producing rifles and artillery pieces. Next, connect the nation. With the damage inflicted by the war, much of the infrastructure across America is in shambles. Roads that were not in great shape to begin with due to a prolonged depression are now riddled with more than just occasional pothole. To assist in rebuilding of war-torn America, we will direct additional funding to rebuild infrastructure. Next, here we go. The horror of the Second American Civil War spared no American citizen. Nearly everyone lost a brother or sister of a terrible conflict. Many families lost their breadwinners in the war and now wonder how they will provide for themselves. A new agency to organize relief for those devastated by the war is needed. So an extraction scheme. So we struggle to rebuild this nation's industrial base. We'll turn south to the Sunbelt states as we have plenty of untapped natural resources. For further implementation of air conditioning, more Americans will find the Sunbelt hospitable. Not only will manufacturers find place for weaker union presence, but they also appreciate the warm, sunny climates, so they bring the American industries of Southwest and Southeast. I guess now we gotta fucking, I don't know, anti-submarine warfare, why not? That's not the most interesting. You can pause and go back and read if you want to read about fucking anti-submarine warfare. Actually, you might have, and I apologize if you did. That was rude of me to say. Let's go ahead and read it. As our sea and land forces act more in coordination, we must maintain a rigorous style of organization to ensure that our troops are well supplied. We'll take steps to improve our supply lines to ensure that rations and ammunition get to our men in the field. Jesus fucking Christ. Located at 17 Piedmont Street in the Bay Village neighborhood of Boston, a few south blocks of Boston Public Gardens, the Coconut Grove is well known among Bostonians as a popular hangout spot given the number of celebrities are visited by GIs, movie stars, celebrities, and even politicians like Maurice Tobin. The nightclub also has been rumored to have links with the mafia and organized crime. Initially a garage and warehouse, the club offered its patrons dining and dancing in a South Seas-like tropical paradise with support columns made to look like palm trees and fixtures made to look like coconuts. 10:15 on the evening November 28th, however, a young soldier removed a light bulb in the lounge to give himself and his date some privacy. A young busboy was called to replace the light bulb. Unable to find a bolt, he lit a match, tightened the bulb, and extinguished the match. Witnesses would report that soon after, flames burst from palm fronds beneath the ceiling. Despite the best efforts of staff, the flames simply spread throughout the nightclub, racing faster than the patrons could move, covering the entire establishment with smoke. The building's main entrance was a single revolving door, which became useless as the patrons stampeded in panic. By the time firefighters arrived, 492 lives were lost. Perhaps more grotesque was the fact that some bodies were discovered with drinks still in their hands, so fire and toxic smoke had overtaken them too quickly. The owner of the club, Barney Wolanski, was convicted on 19 counts of manslaughter due to his failure in following the loose restrictions of the city. Investigators also discovered that the club lacked licenses for serving liquor and food, and their modeling was done by unlicensed contractors. The mayor of Boston, Maurice Tobin, has come under fire for his connection to Wolanski, with some calling for his resignation. He says, that's fucked. Alright. Recognize the need for the installation of electrical distribution systems to serve rural areas of the U.S. This morning, President Winant signed Executive Order 7037 into legislation, also referred to as the Rural Electrification Act of 1944. Legislation aims to provide federal loans for the rural areas of the nation. Like the Homestead Act before, it sought to give the common man an equal chance. Winant expressed it was his desire to see the descendants of homesteaders have access to electricity, already the norm in the majority of American cities. While some doubt if it is even feasible to bring power to remote areas, the cooperatives working with the REA have switched to 7,200-volt distribution networks to help the transition. The act also has political implications, as there is no doubt the American government is aiming to restore relations with populace with the scars of the American Civil War still present, a light in every home. Let's see. Corny Hicks Hodges, solid generals. Yeah. They can rejoin, why not? The anti-Jim Crow laws passed by Congress have been met with fierce opposition by staunch segregationists, especially in the South. Riled up by individuals such as Mrs. J.E. Andrews of the Women's National Association for the Preservation of the White Race, have accused the government and the NAACP of ruining the, quote, pure white race, unquote, that white women and girls are under threat from the African Americans. Without clamors and leaflets in the streets, turned to blatant protest. Ever since the bill's implementation, African Americans have been voicing out concerns of crimes directed towards them. Despite the efforts of the federal government to erode the poll tax and grandfather clauses that plague the voting systems of the South, these state and country legislators have promised to their people that Jim Crow will persist. These protests have also been supported by remnants of the longest regime in Louisiana, such as William Reinecke, who have outright refused to accept the government's anti-Jim Crow measures, denouncing them as bills made by carpetbaggers, scalawags, and the NAACP to integrate schools. The most prominent voices of segregation is Theodore Bilbo, former longest senator and open member of the KKK, denouncing Congress Bilbo's controversial work, Take Your Choice, Separation, or Mongrelization, has found fans within the radical elements of the South, with rhetoric screaming for self-defense and lynching to, quote, save the white race, unquote. The protests have only gone violent, with many saying it's a repeat of a Red Summer 36. Do we have to send in the National Guard? I swear to God. I want this one going for a bit longer. Because why not? Nope. In 1865, under an initiative by then-President Lincoln, during the First American Civil War, the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, commonly known as the Freedmen's Bureau, was created to aid in the reconstruction of the South. While there was debate as whether or not the legislation was actually successful, the Bureau was effectively banned in 1972. Conclusion of the Second American Civil War, Congress decided to reestablish the Bureau, keeping the humanitarian spirit of its predecessor, while also helping resolve the former's failures. The organization is officially renamed the Bureau of Refugees, Landless, and Orphaned, headed by none other than New England native Archbishop of Boston, Richard Cushing, a member of the NAACP and well known throughout Boston for seemingly endless energy and desire to reform. Cushing has been noticed for his extraordinary charisma that ties together Boston's Jewish, Catholic, and Protestant communities. In addition to the economic and medical aid to those left stricken by the brutality of the Civil War, the new Bureau also plans to provide land, education, and opportunity to those who lost everything. Not only will the Bureau help with rebuilding broken communities, but the Bureau will also aid in large churns of former refugees who fled Canada and New England during the war. Many of those refugees lost their homes and possessions in the opening chaoses of a week. The Bureau hopes to compensate them for their properties. Cushing has announced his plans for repurposing the former longest and English buildings to create schools, clinics, and new institutions to help heal the former nation. The broken nation. By extending a hand of grace and charity to the former rebellious states of the Union, the Bureau hopes that in time the wounds and scars will finally heal. Charity to all. I'm going to check and see how many parts I have. I would have enough thumbnails for at least one, so I might as well go and cut it here, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, I can't give you a trait. Heck yeah. Infantry expert. I already know it. Thanks as always for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, leave a like. If not, feel free to dislike. You want to see more of this kind of feature. The sub button for uploads every weekday as well as every Saturday. If you have any comments, feedback, concern, leave in the comment section below. I read all the comments you get. Appreciate any feedback you might have for me. Chat, play games, any sort. Comment section down below. $1 per month. Check out my Patreon, chat, play games, Discord. See me just live, Twitch. I'll put you down in the description box below. That's it for now, folks. Thanks as always for watching. My name has been DB333. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.